Hello, boys and ghouls. It seems like you decided to crawl out of your coffins for a midnight terror tale. Don't worry, your old fiend, the Compendium Keeper, is more than happy to oblige. Seeing as we're all passionate fangs of the Dark Cloud series, it only makes sense we talk about the most terrifying tale the Dark Cloud series has to offer. Now I know what you're thinking. It's not the eldritch horror that is Gaffer No-Face. Rather, this tale focuses on someone who came across the most bizarre version of Dark Cloud 2. Perhaps not one from this world. So bundle up tight as we unravel this Dark Cloud terror tale. It's called You Failed, written by Lindenbree. It begins. My PlayStation 2 broke a long time ago, and I never got around to replacing it. Recently, however, my friend allowed me to borrow hers. Didn't take much time to figure out what I wanted to play on it. When I was a child, I had a video game called Dark Cloud. It was an interesting story about a boy who had to collect the broken pieces of the world and put it back together. Although I enjoyed the game, I never really had a chance to play its sequel due to the untimely death of my beloved console. Unable to play, I settled with watching playthroughs of the sequel on YouTube, so I knew exactly how the game goes. Now though, I have a chance to play it myself. I don't know anyone who owns a copy of Dark Cloud 2, so I decided to find it online. As I search through the used copies on Amazon, the page suddenly refreshes itself. Did I accidentally hit F5? Well, anyway. I looked through the offers again and noticed one I didn't see before. It's a used copy, in acceptable condition, priced at $6.99. That's so cheap, I thought to myself. The description reads, "Disc has minor scratches, doesn't come with the case, plays as intended." I look at the offer with suspicion. The other copies are at least $20, and this cost is ridiculously low. I assume plays as intended means the game works, but if that's true, why is it selling for so cheap? Anyways, after some consideration, I decide to buy the game anyways. If it works, well, it'll be well worth the price. If it doesn't, I didn't lose much. In 3 days the game arrives. I see what's supposed to be the title and the artwork on the front disc, but it's very faded and hard to make out. Unsurprisingly, I got a disc read error display on the screen. I cleaned up the disc and tried it again. This time worked fine. Soon the game's opening plays, and I smile at the wonderful music and beautiful graphics. I start a new game, and I'm given the option to choose an outfit for the main character, Max. Every outfit comes with a large red pendant. A stone he wears that, unbeknownst to him, has magical properties. After messing with the outfits, I decide to go with Max's default clothing. Finally, I get to play this, I thought to myself. I played through the beginning of the game with no problem, and got to the point where Max tries to go to the circus, but a little boy steals his ticket. After talking with the townfolk, a cutscene is triggered. I watch Max tackle the boy down and take his ticket back, only to be persuaded to let the boy keep it. The boy starts to run off and turns around again. I know what should happen. The screen should become black and the boy says something vague about passing and being able to do it, and then disappears, leaving the ticket behind and Max confused. But this doesn't happen. Instead, the game begins to lag until it freezes. I feel my heart sink. Well, the game did have a lot of scratches, I thought to myself. I guess this is to be expected. I wait in silence, listening to the console strain itself in an attempt to play out the cutscene. Just as I'm about to restart the game, the screen changes, and I see a new background come on, but it's red. The boy speaks, but his dialogue is intelligible because the audio is glitching like the rest of the game. Then everything on the screen turns red for a few moments. The cutscene's over, and I'm in control again. I check my inventory and the ticket's there, so it should be normal. Well, I'm lucky the game didn't have to be reset. Now to get through the other cutscenes, and hopefully they work properly. After entering the circus tent, Max watches a circus with glee. I hold out my enthusiasm though, not sure how long the game would continue to function. Everything plays out normally and eventually Max hears a strange voice and checks it out. We see Flotsam interrogate the mayor, as per usual, about a stone. The deranged clown then attacks the mayor by whacking him with his cane. The mayor falls to the floor with blood dripping from his mouth. My eyes widen. I've seen this scene before. It's not supposed to be this graphic. Nothing in the game is supposed to be that graphic. Flotsam begins to choke the mayor until his face turns blue, and then throws him to the floor and kicks him, again and again. The mayor cries out. I drop the controller in shock. Just as Max knocks over a can, the brutal assault ceases as Flotsam focuses his attention on the noise. "Who are you?" shouts a deranged clown. The mayor says nothing. Panicked, Max runs away. At this point, a lighthearted chase scene is supposed to play out, but the game lags again until it freezes. Just what the heck happened? Maybe this game's been hacked. Regardless of what it is, I suppose I should record at the very least. So maybe people will be interested in seeing the differences. I leave and get my camera. Upon returning, I see the game is still frozen. I set up my camera to record the screen. Then I turned the lights down so the video quality wouldn't be as bad, and I turned up the volume so the sound could be picked up by the camera. I double checked to make sure everything is recording. Then I try skipping the cutscene to continue playing this creepy game. The game responds by lagging a bit more, and then freezing again. Great, my last save was right before the circus incident. I don't want to watch that violent scene again, but I guess I have to, if I want to have it recorded. I reset the game and start up my file, enter the circus tent, and the game starts lagging again. I skip the cutscene as fast as I can, not wanting the game to freeze again. What's even the point of having a hacked copy if it barely even works? The game loads, and this time, the cutscene actually does skip, and I'm in control of the game. Max is in the streets of the city, Palm Brinks. The next playable segment should be in the sewers, not in the city. There's no sound at all, not even the usual nighttime sounds. I glance towards the camera and see that it's still recording. I move forward with Max, only for him to fall as a giant clown robot lands behind him, shaking the screen and breaking the silence. This is supposed to happen in a cutscene, but now it appears during gameplay. Flotsam's riding the robot. "Now, boy, shall we begin?" Flotsam asks his robot. Halloween moves towards Max, so I move the analog stick forward, forcing him to run. We run and run down the alley until Max's friend Donnie appears. "Max, this way!" shouts Donnie, motioning to the alleyway. We run to Donnie, but Halloween makes a leap and gets there first, landing on him. I wince and Max screams. The robot takes a step towards us as it lifts his foot. Donnie didn't make it. I try to make Max run away, but he won't move. "Hand over the pendant, boy," demands Flotsam. The pendant he's referring to is a large stone that Max wears. Although Max doesn't know it yet, this stone has magical powers. This stone is magic and can cause disaster should it fall in the wrong hands. "Hand it over now, and I'll let you leave here alive." I press several buttons trying to make the game respond, and nothing happens. The characters are silent for a few moments, unable to do anything. "Well, what's it gonna be?" asks Flotsam. Two options appear on the screen. "No, I won't," and "Take it." I guess I can interact with the game now. I try pausing, but nothing happens, so I guess I have to pick one. Max is supposed to refuse to hand the stone over, and the player is supposed to have no input on the decision at all. I decide to choose Take It, just to see what would happen. Surely can't be worse than what happened before. I hit X to confirm the choice. The screen turns red. A voice says, "You failed." An extremely loud white noise sounds from the television, and I nearly fall out of my chair in surprise. I glance around for the remote, unable to find it. I lunge myself forward to turn off the console, leaving the room in silence. I find myself shaking. So after a few calming breaths, I turn the lights back on and check the camera to see how recording went. The camera was off. The battery was not running low, so why did it turn off? I turn it back on and see that nothing was recorded at all. I checked it so many times to make sure it was working. Exhausted, I decide to try again tomorrow. The next day, I try to play the game but get a disk read error. While cleaning the disk, I notice small red letters on the bottom of the faded artwork. "You failed." Was that there before? Trying not to think about it, I attempt to play the game again, but disk read error keeps on occurring no matter what I try. So much for showing this scary game to others. I decide to go back to Amazon and write a review on the disc that I bought, warning people that the product I've gotten was damaged and hacked. I can't even remember the name of the seller, so I look through my internet history trying to find it. Only it's not there. I check several other web pages and it still isn't there. I check my purchase history and it's not there either. After many futile attempts to find the seller, it eventually dawns on me. I have no proof that this ever happened. All there is is a disc that won't play. So, what did I think about the story? Well, I thought it was okay, if not entertaining. This was written around 2014, so usually with writing, you get better over time. I'd love to see the author take another stab at it. What did you think about the story? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I commend the author for writing a scary story about such an obscure video game in the first place. That's impressive. Queen's Shipwreck, written by Basics of Insanity. I had this thought. I know that all the dungeons were changed with the awakening of the Dark Genie. What if for Shipwreck, the monsters were already there, before the Dark Genie wreaked havoc on the land? When Lasaya tragically passed away, she placed a curse on the church, deeming all marriages to fail. She's been dead for 100 years, been bitter, angry, hurt for 100 years. It really makes you think, what if she had these powers before she passed away, and in death, those powers changed the shipwreck and even the monsters in it over the years? It all comes together. The Cursed Rose, Gyan, Gunny, Pirate's Chariot, even the Mask of Prajna, they all could have been things in or on the ship before its demise. The Cursed Rose could have been plain roses given to Lasaya by her lover. The Mask of Prajna, decorative masks fitting any royal. The Pirate's Chariot were obviously cannons made to defend the ship from pirates looking to plunder its riches. It really makes you think. The undead monsters, the sailors, the pirate captains, perhaps they were racked with grief and threw themselves overboard to be with their queen, leaving their souls lost at sea. That's not all, as the cold, grief-stricken walls of the shipwreck are home to sea life that became sea monsters. So other monsters like Sam, Auntie Midu, Mimics, and the King Mimic, they were all brought to this undersea burial ground through the influence of the Dark Genie. The evil power of the genie made the curse stronger, Lasaya's anguish deeper, and strengthening her resolve to hate the seaside town which she once ruled, and thus made the monsters stronger. I don't know. Maybe it's a stupid little headcanon, a lame theory, or maybe I'm putting too much thought into it. It all underscores the fact that the shipwreck and the tale of Lasaya have always been my favorite. Out of all the bosses, her backstory was the most tragic in the game. Dark Cloud Ghost Town, a true story by Hidden Castle. This next story isn't anything based on fiction, as there's no haunted Amazon listing or tales of an undersea spirit which haunts the seas. Rather, this true story focuses on an unassuming copy of Dark Cloud that I came across and still have in my possession. What makes this copy of Dark Cloud truly unique is how the villagers in the game are portrayed. The appearance of these villagers look unearthly, as they're portrayed as being transparent figures surrounded in a spectral glow. It's fitting, as official Dark Cloud media described those same villagers who are trapped by the Dark Genie in Atla as being perished, and that tone harnesses the spirit of those destroyed to rebuild a new world. Perhaps not all the villagers who arrive at the town made it out of Atla alive, forced to forever roam these villages and towns forever, being spun in the wheel of fate, of life and death, searching for an answer. The Cursed Copy of Dark Cloud, written by Mr. Swissroll. I was going to the thrift store to buy some old clothes. One day, behind the clothes racks, I saw a copy of Dark Cloud for the PlayStation 2. It always was one of my favorite PS2 games, but I sold it a long time ago to get some extra cash, and this copy was only $2. I got some pretty cool clothes for $5 as I walk up to the cashier, who's a relatively older man with a mustache. As I place all of my items on the desk, he pulls aside a copy of Dark Cloud and says, "You can have it for free." Hey, this was pretty good to hear, so now I can get to McDonald's and get home. On my way home, I noticed on the manual of Dark Cloud something was scribbled. God. I didn't really think much of it. When I get home, I hurry to my PS2 and put Dark Cloud in for some nice quality gaming time. Instead of loading my 100% save, I decide to start a new file. The game starts normally. I go through Divine Beast's cave and make it through all 8 floors where you duel Seda. I even get an excellent in the duel and rescue Shao. I did all the floors in one go, so when I come out, it's time for some Diorama town building action. First off, I make the Macho Brothers house, but when the event started, it was much more different than what I remember as a teenager. I remember this event being relatively funny and played for laughs. This time, Camacho pulls out a knife on Macho, and he starts to hurt him without stopping until Macho was no more. Tone sees this, and he weirdly starts to smile and leaves the house. And for most of the events in Norune, weird stuff like this was happening, where Tone was smiling sadistically at other people's pain. But I remember Tone's own house. That's when things got real. It started off with Tone's mom wanting to name Shao. Then Tone pulls out a dagger and starts to brutally attack his mom, Shao, and even the pet llama, ending them all. He stared at the screen, glitching about with hyper-realistic eyes as text appeared across the screen. "You're next." I quickly ejected my game from my PS2 and drove back to the thrift store, only to find the whole building completely gone. When I asked the other people around me what happened to that thrift store, they stared at me blankly and told me it was demolished years ago. I remember when I was growing up, I'd play medieval around this time of year and dress up as a vampire for trick-or-treating. I'd love to get big candy bars and soda cans. It seems like they don't do that anymore. As I got older, I started making my own traditions for this spooky time of year. Games like Blood Omen, Diablo, Maximo, and Silent Hill 2 became a big part of my seasonal rotation. I really enjoy watching scary films too. Movies like The Thing, the Evil Dead series, and Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, that's an all-time favorite. Authors like Stephen King and Brian Lumley, they're really good at what they do. As a kid, I loved reading scary stories to tell in the dark. Horror-themed music has a special place in my heart for this spooky time of year. Artists like Michael Jackson with songs like Monster, Is It Scary, Thriller, and Ghosts. Blue Oyster Cult with Harvest Moon, Soul Survivor, and I Love the Night, or even Prince with songs like A Question of You or Crystal Ball, to name a few. I think this all underscores the creativity that goes into the Halloween season in terms of media and art, as it can be celebrated in countless different ways, whether that be through the mediums of video games, music, literature, or movies. And that begs a question: what are some of your favorite Halloween traditions? Do you have any music, video games, or movies you enjoy during this time of year? I'd love to hear some of your choices in the comments below. Scares can be found everywhere, even where you least expect it, like our favorite video games. Like, did you know that every copy of Mario 64 is personalized? Well, we won't go there, but even Dark Cloud, there's a bit of a spooky feeling to it. Maybe it's because it's an early PlayStation 2 game filled with fog, but there's this feeling of existential dread that a lot of the characters feel, like Undaga and Rando, knowing that they're the last people on Earth, the sole survivors of a cataclysm. I remember whenever Seda would be under control of the Dark Genie, that would frighten me as a child, but what really got me was the demon shaft. I can't put my finger on it, but it's something about the area not having any music, just ambient noise, and the sound of bells ringing in the distance. it was always daylight. The clouds wouldn't move. I love it, but it's always a little off-putting. Even when I was going through Dark Cloud's sound files, I found some pretty spooky sounds. Take a listen. Now I think these belong to the boss of Muscalaca, but I could be wrong. Hey, maybe every copy of Dark Cloud is personalized. I won't go there. With that being said, my lovely Compendium viewers, my name is Hidden Castle, and I hope you all have a spooktacular day. Yes!
Don't let the creatures of the night get you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I had something in my throat. My name's Hidden Castle, and I hope you all have a spooktacular day. In this video, we're going to discuss the mysterious character Aga, never before seen beta content from the Demon Shaft, the mysterious Dark Cloud 1.5, the deleted playable character Seta's involvement. We even reached out to level 5 staff for an interview regarding the elusive Demon Shaft and the secret of Aga. The answers will surprise you. This video is full of lost beta material. You'll want to watch to the very end, only on the Dark Cloud Compendium. Hey there, and welcome to the Dark Cloud Compendium. I'm your host, Hidden Castle. Before we begin, if you enjoy Dark Cloud Lost Media and lore videos, consider subscribing to my Dark Cloud channel and hitting that like button. It really does help the channel grow. And many thanks to my patrons over at patreon.com/hiddencastle for helping fund these Dark Cloud deep dive videos. Without them, none of this would be possible. The link to my Patreon can be found in the description below. Gather around, Dark Cloud community. There are few things more terrifying than the fear of the unknown. Questions that don't have answers, lore with no true ending. I briefly touched on these topics previously on the channel and even on my Dark Cloud iceberg, but they truly deserve their own episode. The Chronicle swords and Demon Shaft went through a troubled development cycle. They inhabit a lost page in Dark Cloud's development history. It begs the question, who created the Demon Shaft and its assets, and who was initially going to wield the Chronicle sword? It's unknown if this area was created by the initial Japanese developers over at level 5, or if it was created by the localization team over at Sony, as they were providing assistance as the game was being developed in Japan. The Demon Shaft's landmass seems to be reused, as it bears a striking resemblance to the floating continent seen in Dark Cloud's beta Tokyo Game Show 1999. Now this rabbit hole goes even further, as the Demon Shaft itself can be seen on the 1999 beta map around this desert-looking town, perhaps an early version of Muscalaca, meaning that the Demon Shaft could very well be one of the first dungeons ever conceived. As I was exploring the files on Dark Cloud's DVD, I was surprised to discover this unused texture depicting a beta Demon Shaft dungeon, an earlier version of its antiquated structures and somber hallways. Now this texture would have been used when you traversed from one dungeon level to the other. It was updated with the final version we see in the game. However, this beta version, it really makes you think of what could have been. And that begs the question, Dark Cloud community, did you finish the Demon Shaft? Growing up, I was never able to, but I did so later on. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below. Let's get the conversation going. Unlike other weapons in Dark Cloud, the two Chronicle swords both went through a very interesting development cycle, as beta versions of these two swords have been discovered, both their 2D sprites and 3D models. Interestingly, Cuboid Pixel accidentally discovered the 3D model as he was playing through the Dark Cloud item randomizer. After retrieving this beta version of the Chronicle sword, when he entered his weapon menu, it reverted to the final design, almost as if the very very game itself knows that this is just not meant to be. Throughout Dark Cloud's development, several changes took place. One notable change being the removal of a playable character. That character was Seda, as he was later replaced with Osmond and relegated to a non-playable NPC character. We do know that work did go into playable Seda, as remnants of his data can still be found in the game files. So looking at these rather large beta Chronicle sword designs, it makes you wonder if Seda was initially going to wield them. The evidence being that the model of playable Seda that we have in the game files is wielding a large broadsword. Having these large beta Chronicle broadswords for Tone wouldn't have made sense for his tiny little arms, hence the redesign into what we see in the final version of the game. The Chronicle 2 was a reward for overcoming the never-ending demon shaft. Its amber-soaked hallways and sepia-toned liminal spaces gave way to the greatest challenge for the ultimate competitor, being the Black Knight Pendragon. The sense of melancholy in this fight is palpable as the player slowly comes to terms that Tone is face to face with very well could be his absent father, confronting the evil that he's become in an effort to redeem him, to pull him from the dark. The parallel of Tone going on his own hero's journey, leaving home and even traveling to the shifting sands of Muskalaka, where Aga once walked many years ago as he left the sentient golem Gosuke to guard the legendary Sun Sword for his own family member to discover, to aid them on their journey. It's ironic as Tone didn't leave Norune village alone as he left with his cat companion Xiao, only to find his father mounting a giant tiger, his own animal companion. And this is significant as it's only through Xiao and Steve that the game reveals the possible connection between Tone and the Dark Knight, although it's left vague for the player's interpretation, as Steve will mention that Xiao's master might recognize the Black Knight. Now with a line as vague as this, what I would usually do is refer back to the Japanese version, as that's the version that the developers made themselves, untouched by localizers. The only issue is that the Demon Shaft and the Dark Knight Pendragon are only available in the international versions, meaning that we have no primary source to refer to. One can't bring up the topic of the Demon Shaft without mentioning Dark Cloud 1.5. Now some of you may be wondering, what exactly is Dark Cloud 1.5? When I began creating videos for the Dark Cloud Compendium in 2018, I remember in October of that same year, Dark Cloud creator Akihiro Hino gave an interview with the gaming publication Siliconera, where he name-dropped that mysterious Dark Cloud game. I never heard of it before. A Dark Cloud game the community never really considered, Dark Cloud 1.5. Now, what exactly is Dark Cloud 1.5? Here it is, told to us by the series creator himself. Quote, "We were fortunate that our first game as a developer was a hit right after we finished with the development of Dark Cloud. After Sony Computer Entertainment saw how complete it was, they immediately said, let's do a next one. So we began working on something that would be a sequel to the Dark series, while we were in the middle of developing Dark Chronicle. Titled Dark Cloud 2 in the US, we released an overseas version of Dark Cloud. However, the overseas version had a system that was made for Dark Cloud 2 in it that basically makes the overseas version something of a Dark Cloud 1.5, end quote. Now, keeping that in mind, that level 5 were adding the refined features from Dark Chronicle's early development into the localized versions of Dark Cloud, it casts the Demon Shaft in a new light, as many of the dungeon's exclusive enemies were later seen in Dark Chronicle, only here in Dark Cloud in this very early beta form. The Demon Shaft created this connection, a bridge between Dark Cloud 1.5 and the game's sequel that we would play later on in the years to come, Dark Cloud 2. And that connection between Dark Cloud 1.5's Demon Shaft and Dark Chronicle goes even deeper than refined gameplay mechanics and familiar beta enemies. Dark Chronicle's initial Japanese release was being developed while Dark Cloud 1.5 was being localized for international markets. As told to us by Akihiro Hino's interview, it has come to the attention of fans of the series that the battle theme for Dark Cloud 2 shares many similarities similarities to the Dark Knight Pendragon's theme from Dark Cloud 1.5 due to that development overlap. It's possible that composer Tomohito Nishihura used an early composition for Dark Chronicle's battle theme and repurposed it to being the Dark Knight Pendragon's boss theme in Dark Cloud 1.5. Let's take a listen. Can you hear the similarities? Let me know in the comments. With that being said, it's time for some Dark Cloud Compendium investigative journalism. Throughout the Dark Cloud Compendium's history, we had the honor of interviewing Dark Cloud 2 voice actors, singers, and even level 5 developers anonymously. If these interviews sound interesting to you, and believe me, they most definitely are, feel free to check out our back catalog of Dark Cloud interviews over on the Dark Cloud Compendium YouTube channel. And while you're at it, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button, silly. You're already this far along in the video. When reaching out to my sources regarding the Demon Shaft and Aga, I asked them exactly who created the assets for the Demon Shaft, whether that be Sony Computer Entertainment of Japan and Level 5, the initial developers, or rather, the localizers, as the Demon Shaft was exclusively playable in the international versions. They told me that they don't recall exactly who made those assets, as it's been more than 20 years. However, they did confirm that they never made any 3D models or concept art for Aga, only the Dark Knight Pendragon. That Aga was no more than a story embellishment added in to expand the world. But the Dark Knight was created to give players a sense of finality. Finally, when asking if Aga and the Dark Knight Pendragon are one and the same, they chose not to answer, enabling the mystery to survive for years to come within our Dark Cloud community. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Castle Maniacs, this area, it really is special because it's one of the only areas of video games I could think of that's inadvertently scary. It's not trying to be horror, but there's a sense of mystery and dread that's palpable all around the area itself. The Demon Shaft really did scare me as a child. This dreamlike tower, empty and desolate, the clouds refusing to move in parallax with the wind, time itself stops as if there's no day and night cycle, all with a strong feeling of discomfort alone with this sense of isolation. No diorama and no villagers. When entering the tower, we're greeted by a sculpture of a lonely warrior carved into the moss-covered walls. The only other thing we see resembling a person is this washed-out, lifeless marble face. Could this be made to represent Aga? Just who built this tower, and what exactly happened here? The word chronicle can be defined as an account of historical events. Sadly, history happens, and with a blink of an eye, it disappears. If we don't make an effort to preserve it, then it could very well become lost to the sands of time. And here we are, even after 20 years, still thinking about the Chronicle Sword, the elusive demon shaft, and the lonely knight who walked its halls. Is the Dark Knight Pendragon Aga? I would like to think so. The idea of a father passing on the torch to his son is poetic. At the same time, I do respect how the developers kept this answer vague, as the world needs more mystery out there, and some mysteries will remain forever unsolved. Thank you for visiting the Dark Cloud Compendium. My name's Hidden Castle, and I'll see you in the next one. After 20 years, Dark Cloud's lost action figures have finally been found, in addition to other unreleased beta figures never before seen, all with a connection to the Legend of Dragoon. Dark Cloud's lost merchandise found and preserved by the Dark Cloud Compendium.
Hidden Castle's Dark Cloud Compendium.
Hey there, and welcome to the Dark Cloud Compendium. My name's Hidden Castle, and I'll be your guide. Today's episode focuses on a rare Dark Cloud lost media discovery over 20 years in the making. Dark Cloud's action figures, and our lost media treasure hunt to find them, to unravel the riddle of Dark Cloud's lost media action figures. We'll be discussing everything from Dark Cloud cut content, 2000's press events, and just how our lost media treasures were finally reunited with the Dark Cloud community. Hey, rescuing these statues from the paws of hoarders is all thanks to our amazing patrons over at Patreon.com who help make this show possible. My focus with the Dark Cloud Compendium is to make all this rare, obscure, and lost media as accessible as possible without any paywalls. If you enjoy the show, consider checking out the Patreon pinned in the comments section down below. It really does help.
Help me!
With that being said, grab your Yu-Gi-Oh cards and climb aboard our Compendium time machine back to the early 2000s, back to Japan 2001's Jump Festa. The year is 2001. The feeling of excitement and optimism for the new millennium was at an all-time high, as the GameCube and Xbox were set to launch in Japan, marking the continuing dawn of the new console cycle. As Sega's Dreamcast was reaching its final sunset, Sony's Dark Clouds loomed over the horizon. Many fans and press alike gathered together at the Makuhare Messe Convention Center in Japan, the nexus for animation and entertainment alike, the one and only Jump Festa. This is the origin point of Dark Cloud's action figures, as it starts right here, this historic event. Sadly, due to this being a foreign convention and relatively obscure for the international markets, like most things related to Dark Cloud, actual photos of the booth went lost for over 2 decades. That is, until they were recently rediscovered on archive.org's Wayback Machine. Through using the Wayback Machine, the Dark Cloud community was able to rediscover these images. Although the images are few in number, it paints the image that Sony was going above and beyond to promote Dark Cloud, as the game had a major showing at the convention hall. I mean, who could miss this giant, life-size Dark Genie himself? Now, this photo in particular is special, as the man standing next to the Dark Genie is none other than Kentaro Motomura, Dark Cloud's producer who worked with Sony's historic Japanese studio and Level 5 alike. Check him out, he looks like such a proud parent. Now we have our giant Dark Genie statue, but what about our Dark Cloud action figures? What Dark Cloud action figures would you have wanted growing up? Personally speaking, I was always a fan of the Master Jackets. Sound off in the comments section down below, and let's get the conversation started. And if you're enjoying the video, hit that like button, it really does help this small channel grow.
昔泳いだ川、野球やった広場、
いやいや通った塾取り戻したい故郷がある。ダーククラウドプレイステーション2から僕んち。プレイステーション
Bigger for vending and our voices that I'll run your vet.
Before we get to our legendary Dark Cloud action figures, there's another curiosity I want to briefly talk about, and that's this rather interesting display of Norune Village. The idea was that this display was modular, meaning that one could simply remove the houses and buildings and place elsewhere on the display to give a hands-on demonstration of the Diorama game mechanic, which is a really cool way of adding hands-on audience involvement, as its legacy lives on as it was later seen up close on the cover of Dark Cloud's Japanese soundtrack, along with this little handmade clay figure of Tone. As we depart this dynamic display of Norune Village and walk on ahead, we approach a showcase containing Dark Cloud action figures. A trio of characters populate the stand, from the skeletal Master Jacket to the villainous Dark Genie, and even that mischievous Ruby is here too. This blurry, singular photo from an obscure Japanese blog site from all those years ago is all that remains of evidence of these statues' existence. It made me wonder, were these action figures made for this event specifically? Or was there more action figures like Tone and the rest of the heroes too? So it seemed as if the window of opportunity was open for villains, heroes, and monsters alike. Jump Festa took place in 2001. Let's step forward in time to 2003. Years have gone by since the initial events, and my curiosity peaked. I must have been about 7 years old when playing Dark Cloud when it released. Much like many of you in the Dark Cloud community, it captured my imagination and never let go. Little did I know that I would stumble upon something truly special. It was the endless days of summer, and I would often spend those humid, rainy moments away from the busy play of the streets to the strange future sounds of dial-up internet and researching my favorite video games. And that's when it hit me. I remember Googling Dark Cloud toys or Dark Cloud action figures, and it led to me coming across a photo on Google Images of Tone and Seda posed together. It absolutely blew my mind. I had to have them, and I had no idea where to find these figures. And me being my young self, I lacked the foresight to save this image, but it was forever burned in my memory. And just like that, around 2006, that image disappeared from the internet. Unsure of what these figures may have been, the sight of them eluded me for a decade. I remember in the early days of the Dark Cloud community telling other community members about these statues, of seeing Tone and Seda posed together, but no luck. In hindsight, it all sounds really silly, but for me, it was my first brush with the world of lost media. It was an experience that served as one of my main inspirations behind the Dark Cloud Compendium and lost media preservation. Since those humid summer days, years have passed by like raindrops in the storm. The preservation of lost media is a preservation of our culture. Little did we all know it would take almost 2 decades for the echoes of the past, Tone and Seda's action figures to find their way back to the Dark Cloud community. With each passing day, month, and year, we'd come closer and closer to making that big discovery, to unraveling this lost mystery, and finally getting our answers. In 2023, the pieces started to come together when fellow Dark Cloud preservationist Kai found 2 advertisements from none other than Bluebox Toys' BBI brand at New York Toy Fair 2001, which which revealed that they were indeed the creators of Dark Cloud statues. This was a big deal as it finally gave us a lead. It all became so clear as Bluebox Toys also made figures for other Sony properties such as The Legend of Dragoon and Omega Boost. It would make sense for them to have also gotten the rights to create statues for Dark Cloud, as they previously did business with Sony. This first ad in particular gave us a closer look at Tone and Seda, or should I say Tone and Sed, spelling mistakes aside, by using Bluebox Toys as our main lead for research, and utilizing the Wayback Machine's website for Bluebox Toys, we were able to rediscover another advertisement that was previously lost, giving us a closer look at how these rarities were presented. It seems that this would have represented the first set, and to our surprise, it even included this ferocious looking master jacket, which we never saw clearly up to this point. And with that, the floodgates were swung open. It didn't take long until we found magazine advertisements for sale on eBay of all places. This one is special as it detailed the creation of these statues, in addition to showing us prototype unpainted versions of Ruby and the Dark Genie, along with other characters that were previously unknown, like the mighty Minotaur Joe. To dig even deeper, Kai even rediscovered this listing over at EB Games, showing that the Tone, Seda, and Master Jacket statues represented the first set, or wave if you will. And get this, they were sold as an online exclusive. They were first priced at $49.99 in the summer, but were quickly discounted down to $19.99 a few months later, perhaps due to the lack of sales. And I mean, can you blame them? Seda went to Sed, to being mistaken as Tone. Sadly, this was a negligence that was given to the Dark Cloud statue set. Perhaps it was doomed to fail from the very beginning. But this solves a key part of the mystery of why these statues fell into obscurity in the first place. They were never sold in stores to our knowledge, instead only offered online in the sepia-tone days of the 2000s, where the internet was a rarity and not widely adopted. It's clear that these statues, being created for the niche statue collecting markets, with their limited advertising and online exclusivity, just failed to make the sales that Bluebox Toys and Sony were both hoping for. They were a financial failure. It's unknown if Bluebox Toys created the second wave of statues, as they have yet to be seen or found in the modern era. In the world of lost media, good things come when the community diligently searches. After 2 long decades of these statues disappearing like an opar from the ashes, they miraculously reappeared. A mysterious collector with connections to the gaming industry introduced themselves via the Dark Cloud community Discord, inquiring about these lost statues that they happened to come across. And there they were, the heroic duo of Tone and Seda. Seda standing tall and proud, albeit missing his sword, and Tone ready for adventure, but he left his arms at home, and he was missing his stand too. The owner expressed interest in putting these statues up for auction on eBay. I quickly explained the history of these statues, as well as the Dark Cloud Compendium preservation project, and the need to properly document these statues for the sake of preservation. There's many Dark Cloud fans from all around the world that would be interested in hearing the story of these lost media statues. And at that moment, it seemed as if we'd have a chance of reuniting them with the Dark Cloud community. The only issue was that the seller was asking for an amount just shy of being in the thousands. After some negotiating and problem solving alike, these statues were finally freed from the hands of opportunists and back with the Dark Cloud community where they belonged. It's all thanks to the amazing Dark Cloud community member and loyal Compendium supporter, Story Lover, who helped me pay for these statues in the last minutes, and I couldn't think of a better person to split these figures with. After this video for documentation, Tone made his trip to his new home overseas in the United Kingdom, where Storylover would take care of him while Seda stayed here in Casa de Hidden Castle. When finding out who created the Dark Cloud figures, it allowed our group to do some investigative digging. We discovered that while Bluebox Toys handled the creation of video game figures and statues, they later shifted their focus to toddler and baby toys. Everything from fine motor, gross motor, and manipulatives, but not a single Dark Cloud figure could be found on their websites. Kai had the idea of making contact with Bluebox Toys via email and inquired if they had any information regarding our Dark Cloud figures. Unfortunately, Bluebox Toys responded and declined any questions, saying that they don't have any information about Bluebox Toys' involvement with Dark Cloud. This made me think, maybe, just maybe, the representative who responded to that email was from that new guard of Bluebox Toys, the one brought in when they rebranded themselves to focus on baby toys. If we could somehow reach out to someone who worked at Bluebox Toys during the 2000s, they may have the answers to our questions. Now, getting in contact with an employee like that is easier said than done, as they would have had to work in the 2000s and around the Dark Cloud line to have any recollection of it. However, I did find a solid lead, notably being Bluebox Toys photographer Jim Kaiser. Jim Kaiser was responsible for photographing the Dark Cloud set along with other Bluebox Toys. He may even have knowledge on where the unreleased figures of Ruby, the Dark Genie, and Minotaur Joe, notably where they went after the photography session. With our luck, they'd be stashed in a warehouse, just waiting to be found. Unfortunately, despite my efforts, I was unable to make any contact with this potential source of knowledge, and after waiting for some time and getting no response, I decided to pack it up and call it a day. With that, we were out of any solid leads for the time being. Looking at these print advertisements with a critical eye can reveal some well-hidden secrets, some well-hidden nuggets of information. The first being the packaging of these Dark Cloud figures. The online listing only shows our trio of characters, of figures out of their box. Well, it was typical for toy companies of that era to show their entire product line on the back of the box. We know this as Bluebox had done this before in the past, which means that perhaps if we had the packaging, we could have got a better look at the mysterious figures for Ruby, the Dark Genie, and Minotaur Joe. Unfortunately, we never truly got a good look at the packaging, but if one looks close enough, they can make out what seems to be the packaging of Seda and the Master Jackets. And now, where do we begin? It seems that the packaging once again featured the outdated Dark Cloud logo. The side profile of these boxes features a large, eye-catching image of the characters. Either the back or the opposite side of the packaging has information regarding the character, the game, and the features of articulation of these figures. Interestingly, when these figures were being advertised in the media, the writers would often use the early Japanese names, such as Majin for the Dark Genie, Ushi for Minotaur Joe, and Set or Seda with a Z, always getting Seda's name wrong. And the confusion regarding the names even spilled into the advertising, as they could never get Tone and Seda's name quite right. This is also prevalent in Dark Cloud's trading cards, which had errors with the character names as well. It all paints the image that Sony's approach to multimedia at that time was to advertise as soon as possible, but through doing so, this led to several name and lore issues in the advertising cycle. Now, what this this tells me is that these figures were being made as early as possible while Dark Cloud is being developed in Japan and localized by Sony International. All of this evidence comes together to show us that the toy deal for Dark Cloud between PlayStation and Bluebox was signed as early as possible in the game's development, before things like names were finalized and localized. Now there's a good reason for this, as this tactic is typically done for merchandise deals. To sign as early as possible means that the toy companies have enough time to develop, design, manufacture, and release these toys to coincide with the game's release, which is funny in a cosmic and ironic sort of way, considering that these figures sold so poorly that they were forgotten and became lost media. And the Dark Cloud beta rabbit hole goes even deeper, as Bluebox Toys didn't only use the beta logo on the box, but they also used the beta logo on the stand for the figures, in addition to using the beta 3D render of the cover art for their advertising. Bluebox used the beta logo not only on the figure mount, but also on the box arts, and to seal the deal, they even used a beta version of the 3D render of the cover arts. Another bizarre aspect of Dark Cloud's lost media action figures is this interesting number seen on the advertisement and box arts. It appears to be a code used by Bluebox to keep track of their releases. And it begs the question, did Bluebox have an internal database for keeping track of release numbers and the figures that they would have shipped to retail? Are these numbers something more, and do they hold a key part in this mystery? However, the codes were never truly consistent, as on the Bluebox release number on the advertisement, the number doesn't match with the one provided on the sale page at EB Games Online. They could never get it quite right. After Bluebox rebranded their company to a child-friendly version, what did they do to that database? I mention this because Bluebox Toys did indeed keep a physical vault of all of their products, which can be seen in these photos. In addition to the founder, Mr. Peter Chanpui, had Bluebox responded to the emails sent out by Kai, they could have possibly dug into their vault and provided us with photos of Dark Cloud's figures, their packaging, and maybe even the fabled second wave of figures that was never released. Can all of Bluebox's products still be found in the archive? Did they dispose of the product when Mr. Peter Chanpui tragically died in 2013, which led to the changing of the guard and the shift of focus in the company? One could only imagine. And our journey with these rare Dark Cloud lost media figures began at none other than Jump Fest in Japan, a foreign event with little to no documentation outside of Nippon. But what if I told you that this was not the only event that these Dark Cloud figures appeared at, as hidden away in Tomart's Action Figure Digest, an action figure magazine which frequently covered New York Toy Fair? We can see that these figures made their American debut. It's truly heartwarming knowing that these figures were shown off in Japan, in addition to North America. But as far as we know, they were never for sale in Japan and just barely provided in America. Maybe storefronts like Walmart, Toys R Us, and KB Toys refused to carry them due to the lack of sales of other Bluebox toys. Maybe that's why they were sold online. Before we begin our analysis on this chapter in the tale of Dark Cloud's lost media action figures, we should touch on what exactly are the fabled prototype figures, the development between the prototype and final action figures. Over the course of production, big and tiny alterations are made when creating these figures. You may be wondering, why talk about the prototypes? The tale of these prototypes is crucial as they potentially hold the key to an answer to why they are sold online rather than traditional retail. It goes without saying Bluebox Toys did go to the toy fair in an attempt to gauge interest in their new Dark Cloud products. If these retailers were interested in these figures at the show, then they'd make the space at their establishments for these figures. It was very common for toy companies like Bluebox to bring along their prototypes, anything resembling the complete product, which brings us to these prototype figures having the spotlights at New York Toy Fair 2001. Now, Castle Maniacs, the saying goes, everything is clear in hindsight. And sadly, with how these figures were sold online only, never being seen in store, it's safe to think that Bluebox was unable to obtain a deal with the retailer. If they did, we would have seen them in person. Rather, selling these action figures online was a result of not securing a deal with retailers. The only image that we have of this complete figure set was obtained at the New York Toy Fair 2001. Now, take my hand and don't let go, or else you may end up being lost media too, to fade into obscurity and drifting away, forgotten. The Dark Cloud Compendium has been here for 5 years, through good times and bad, but dedicated all the same. If you're still here watching, I wanted to express my gratitude. We're both just as dedicated, we're both a little bit crazy, aren't we? And we'll both save Dark Cloud's lost media together. Now, that's enough sentiment. There's even more Dark Cloud figure history to cover, so gather around as we analyze Dark Cloud's prototype figures, every detail. The beta prototype of Tone was indeed different, as the arms were in a different position, whereas the finished figure had his arms in front of his chest. Now, what good is a hero without a dastardly villain? The Dark Genie's prototype figure remained unpainted and featured 3 brightly colored pieces of clay. It likely would have been later replaced for transparent glass as it used for both Tone and Sada's finished figures. It's clear that BBI didn't sculpt out the elaborate markings on the Dark Genie's gut as of yet within this prototype figure. And one can't mention the Dark Genie without Sada. The differences in the beta prototype figure of Sada matches Tone, as Sada's arms were also in a different position. The final figure has Sada wielding his blade with 2 hands. The prototype figure of Ruby features a different arm placement. I feel like the creator of these figures was trying to replicate this pose from Ruby in her concept arts. And here comes Hidden Castle's favorites. The prototype figure of Master Jacket also features a different arm placement, with one up and the other down, compared to the final figure, where both arms are neutral. Now with these statues, the way the arms go in, it's at a hexagon peg, they're unable to move. The fine details like the cracks all over its skull were not painted quite yet. And as for Minotaur Joe, we'll never truly know, as this is the only time we've seen his figure. With that being said, the deep dive look at these rare prototype figures is done and dusted. We learned all that we could regarding these prototypes 2 long decades later. Let's take a closer look at the Dark Cloud figures we obtained after all these years. After more than 20 years, this lost chapter of Dark Cloud's history has finally reached the hands of the lost media preservation community and the Dark Cloud Compendium. This is the first time that these figures were ever seen on video, so gather around, let's take a closer look at what's been eluding us for all those years. Dark Cloud's figures of Tone and Sada, lost media no more. Many moons have passed waiting for these figures to arrive, and when it was finally time to release our Dark Cloud heroes from their cardboard Atla prisons, one thing took me by surprise as I was unwrapping them, and that was the small details and the style of paint that Bluebox Toys used when creating these statues. They just looked so vibrant and full of detail and color. The build quality is hefty and heavy as they're made of resin. A quick scan around both figures reveal that there is no company copyright text. That's usually common in other action figures and statues. Had Dark Cloud's figures had this from the beginning, it would have made them so much easier to find out who created them, but for some reason, it was omitted. Tone's figure has long hair and his poncho flowing, and speaking of his poncho, it looks phenomenal as there's subtle small details such as the shadows around the fabric folds, and the individual sculpting of each strand of hair and the poncho stitching. It looks really impressive for a statue from the early 2000s, as other figures from that era would have lazily painted on these subtle features, but rather Bluebox opted for a two-pronged approach to sculpt the finer details and paint on top of them. You can tell that there is care given to this Dark Cloud product, unlike the online advertising. Tone features a really odd expression, but I have to admit, it did grow on me over time. It resembles European animation like Wakfu. It feels really cool seeing another company officially reinterpret Tone since we got so very little Dark Cloud official representation in multimedia. His arms were lost to the sands of time. However, through using Bluebox Toys' advertisement as our primary source, we can get a clearer look at what Tone would have looked like had he been complete, as he would have been wielding this amazing looking sun sword, which is fascinating as Tone is always depicted in official art as wielding the dagger. Moreover, his other hand featured a light green glass gem of an Atlamelia, which is really impressive. Again, Bluebox Toys didn't paint on any features, and in the Atlamelia's case, glued on a glass gem, giving a premium look. Now the facial expression, the sun sword, and this pose does beg the question, did Level 5 and Sony send Bluebox Toys key arts of their Dark Cloud characters and design guidelines for Bluebox to adhere to? Was a sculptor given free reign to reinterpret these iconic characters? Now I mention this as we've never seen a 3D render or official art of Tone resembling this pose, or wielding the sun sword, but the few photos that we have of Ruby's statue looks fairly accurate to the official art, as they're both posed in a similar way, as Ruby's figure follows this official pose in Dark Cloud's art. Overall, I think Bluebox Toys did a really good job with Tone in this figure. With that being said, I would have much rather had his facial expression resemble how he appears in the final version of the game, but I also appreciate this different look. Hey, it's not every day we see our favorite Diorama protagonist reinterpreted through official media. Now let's move on to Seda, and the first thing that stuck out to me with this figure was his hair, as Bluebox Toys painted it this iridescent silver as he's caught in this chaotic battle pose. The sculpting is expressive and full of purpose, and I really do like the color they used on both of these figures, as they both have this washed out watercolor aesthetic, almost as if both figures leaped out of a page of concept art. You can see that they sculpted each individual strand, giving it this really cool look. Referring back to Bluebox Toys advertisements, we can see that Seda would have featured his familiar greatsword. Unfortunately, the figure we got lost his blade ages ago. The quality only continues as care was also put into the creation of the figure mounts, which is also made of a durable resin. Putting this mount towards the light allows it to illuminate and bask in the glow, giving it this radiant appearance. this. The added glitter applied also really does bring out that otherworldly feeling. Each curve of the dark clouds is sculpted into the resin rather than lazily being painted on, giving it a rather dynamic 3D look, which feels great to touch. It makes every detail pop out. Now, there's more to this mount than meets the eye, as keen Dark Cloud fans would have noticed that this logo is familiar, as it's based on the original logo for Dark Cloud. Dark Cloud's logo did go through a number of changes throughout development, as it originally appeared much more cartoonish looking, as it featured purple clouds emerging from the dark urn. When Dark Cloud later reappeared at Tokyo Game Show 2000, the logo evolved into this much more fantasy-inspired design, removing that charming urn altogether. Now, this logo was only used briefly, as it once again evolved into its final form that we're all familiar with. It all makes me think, why would Bluebox use the original 1999 logo of Dark Cloud for a product that was releasing well into 2001 with a new logo altogether, when Dark Cloud saw a number of revisions, making that logo on the mounts out of date? It really does make me think that maybe Bluebox Toys just liked the look of the previous logo. Again, there's no copyright names or dates engraved onto the mounts, which is very odd indeed, as it's typical practice for companies to put their copyright text anywhere on the figure, but here they are, Dark Cloud's figures and mounts with no copyright holders to be found. It's a tragedy that these figures fell into the bargain bin, and even more so that they're quickly forgotten into lost media by the same community that was meant to embrace them, as you can tell that Bluebox Toys put a lot of love and effort into their creation, and it's a shame that we never got a good look at the rest of the figures. I personally would have loved to see the approach they would have taken with Ruby's more complex Harabi design and the shading technique they would have used for the rickety bones of the master jackets. Simply put, these figures did not deserve to be lost media. I really wish that all parties involved, Level 5, PlayStation, and Bluebox Toys, would have allowed these figures to have a wider release, because I really do think the fans would have taken a liking to them and would have went out of their way to collect them all. Throughout our action figure deep dive and on our Dark Cloud iceberg journey, one thing can never be understated, and that is the passion of the Dark Cloud community. Even after 20 years, a lifetime, the creativity of our community is clear in all forms of art, from musical remixes to other work that draws inspiration from Dark Cloud, to people even creating their own Dark Cloud fan-made figures. The Dark Cloud community took the role of toy creators and made fan-made figures after all. Let's take a brief look at a number of community creations made by our very own. To begin, I want to highlight the wonderful Manda Marvelous Mysteries, who made tiny figures full of personality of all our JRPG favorites, from Grandia to Rogue Galaxy, Dark Chronicle, and even Dark Cloud. A great touch and attention to detail can be seen in how each figure platform is part of the character history, from Norune Village under Tone, Palm Brinks under Monica, and Planet Rosa under Jaster. Little features like this make it all the more charming. I would love to have a few of these in the Compendium office. Moving away from the world of figures, do you remember that modular diorama set of Norune Village showed off at the beginning of this iceberg? Well, the talented Lich Laboratory took the time to create this Norune Village diorama kit. It's complete with villager houses, mountains, bodies of water, and more. The technique is truly impressive. They even use cat litter to pave the road of Norune. Now, the world of fan figures and dioramas wouldn't be complete without fan-made prop blades. The world of technology has evolved to allow normal people like you and I to do the unthinkable, to create Dark Cloud prop weapons, the dream of every Dark Cloud fan from all around the world. Rowdy Matt 51 had the brilliant idea to use a 3D printer to create their own prop blades from Dark Cloud and Dark Chronicle in the real world. As technology progresses, we find comforts in the ways of old, the time-honored art form of paper folding and Dark Cloud together again. Del Talal created this amazing Dark Cloud papercraft of an Atlamelia. It looks like the real thing. It even has this very interesting polygon look like a PS2 model. And finally, bringing it all back to the world of fan-made figures, Dark Cloud community member and musical master Super Kami Guru commissioned an amazing figure of our #1 genie, Ruby. When I first saw this fan-made figure around April of 2024, what caught my hidden castle eye was the overall unique art style. When comparing this fan-made figure with the real one by BBI, you can see that both were carefully crafted with love, full of quality and detail. The wonderful fan-made figures by Kami Guru and Manda opened the door to the idea of creating custom figures of the whole Dark Cloud crew. Maybe one day. From tiny creations to tiny villages, Atlamelias, and high-tech 3D weaponry, to fan-made figures once again, the Dark Cloud community thinks creatively, and being around that creative energy is motivating. Our uniquely multi-talented members of the community, each one bringing their own interpretation to Dark Cloud figures. After that deep dive and our in-depth look at these figures, you can tell that they were made with a lot of love. How did we never hear about BBI before these Dark Cloud figures? And why did a juggernaut like Sony want to deal with a tiny company like BBI when they could have went to other bigger companies like Nintendo did with Toy Biz? Well, there's a reason for that. Why was BBI chosen to create figures for Dark Cloud, a new IP that was planned to be the next big hit in the world of video games? You would think that they want to give this figure deal to a company that had bigger name value, but with BBI, it felt like the perfect match. And the reason for that can be found in how the company operated. BBI was founded in 1952 by Mr. Peter Chan Pui, who acted as the company's honorable chairman until his passing. The first item that BBI created was a drinking and pissing doll which made a shit ton of money, and as BBI grew, they created more factories in Hong Kong. They transferred their operation to China to keep costs low. It was that cost-cutting maneuver which impressed companies from all around the world. As BBI handled their own R&D as well, they were capable of creating their own figure molds, cutting out the middleman, all while keeping costs low. And like that, for companies that wanted to make toys out of their TV shows, comics, and other fun properties, BBI felt like a safe bet. BBI knew that the market would gradually shift into technology due to the popularity of arcades and video games at home, but they knew deep down that there will always be a demand for regular toys. With that hatched the idea, why not create toys based on popular video games to gain customers and the support of IP holders? And you know what? It worked. BBI kept it low-key, only hiring about 150 employees around the year 2000, but they made a name for themselves, a reputation for being the people to go to if you wanted to make cheap figures for your IPs for a low manufacturing price. Make all the money with little investment. Little by little, as time went on and the money kept coming in, they were able to expand abroad to the UK and America too. They later began developing their own line of figures known as Elite Force. They were unique and detailed 12-inch military figures and vehicles with a revolutionary attention to detail only available from BBI in a crowded world of manufacturing giants like Mattel and LJN. BBI found a middle ground that was lucrative for everyone involved, and they made amazing figures packed with detail. It was when they opened up their branch in America that they began gaining deals for video games, Legacy of Kain, Fighting Force, and Legend of Dragoon, to name a few. The value that came with having the interplay between their toys and ideas based off of video games for popularity. For BBI, it was a way to enter a new market, and for Sony, BBI were the creators who offered the lowest price of investment, low risk, and lots of reward. And for that, they were the best fit to create figures for Dark Cloud due to their low price of entry. I gotta say, Castlemaniacs, toys and dolls are a simple pleasure in childhood, one that not all of us were able to enjoy, but what little we had, they were treasures. Toys gave us a power to create our own adventures with our favorite heroes, and through that play came creativity, life lessons, and hope. It would be easy to end the deep dive without touching on BBI and the impact they made in the world of figures, as often as they are forgotten. Not today. Not on Hidden Castle's watch. Toy companies like BBI gave us an opportunity to enter a world of imagination and create our own adventures, all as children. That cannot be understated. Maybe, with the dawn of technology, the youth of today will never understand, never value the play that comes with figures. Are the youth of tomorrow gonna value the experience that comes with playing with friends and family, with pissing dolls and action figures? I don't know. Are these warm moments gonna fade away, forever replaced with the cold comfort of iPads and technology? It's time to let go. Good luck in the afterlife, Mr. Peter Chan Pui. Whether this be a postmortem or a review on the legacy of BBI, I wanted to give BBI their flowers. Thank you, Mr. Peter Chan Pui, and thank you, BBI. Your work is forever preserved and saved in the Dark Cloud Compendium. Your work will never be forgotten.
So what do you think? It's going to vanish? It's not going to be there when I get back?
Before we complete our deep dive documentary on this lost media secrets, the lost figures of Dark Cloud, I want to take a look back and tell where each company is today. Where are they now? PlayStation worked with Level 5 on Dark Cloud, Dark Chronicle, and later Rogue Galaxy. All were only available on their console alone, not found on any competitors. They later collaborated together to work on White Knight Chronicle, a game that had Diorama as well, only to garner mixed reviews. Like Dark Cloud, White Knight was created by Akihiro Hino, who handled directing, producing Dark Cloud and White Knight. They even hid a cameo from Osmond for good measure. What more could you ask for? White Knight was the final time that Hino was a director under Sony. However, after all the games that Level 5 developed for Sony, none was given the proper multimedia push, like the first Dark Cloud. After the JRPG boom, after Final Fantasy, Sony genuinely wanted their own RPG hit with Dark Cloud, an IP they owned while Level 5 handled the development and creative. We often forget, but Dark Cloud came with a multimedia ad campaign containing TV commercials, aggressive magazine headlines and art heralding it as the Zelda killer, trading cards, an online flash game, giant statues at conventions, and even the topic of this very documentary, a figure line for Dark Cloud to mark its greatness for time immemorial. It's a tragedy due to how these figures became forgotten. Unfortunately, after the collaboration with Level 5 on White Knight, Sony opted to not even release White Knight 2 in America. It was a move that was done in bad faith. What they couldn't take away is the passion of the community. Even today, the Dark Cloud community is alive, keeping the adventure going for generations to come and making new adventures along the way by finding lost media. Dark Cloud would later be re-released on modern consoles, making our Diorama duology accessible for newer fans, and Dark Cloud would find cameos in Everybody's Golf in 2018, and later on in Astro's Playroom in 2024 with Rogue Galaxy and Dark Chronicle. Many clamor for Dark Cloud 3. Many remain hopeful. Maybe one day we'll get our wish. Until then, it may happen. Definitely. Maybe. But what of Level 5? After collaborating with PlayStation, Level 5 wanted to create tiny adventures on the DS like Professor Layton and Inazuma 11. Little did they know that their new IP would explode in popularity, giving Level 5 a mega hit series that they had control over, unlike Dark Cloud. They later created the mega hit Yokai Watch. For a while, it was not uncommon to walk into a toy store and find toys of Inazuma 11, Professor Layton, and Yokai Watch. All over North America and Europe, Yokai Watch was a multimedia powerhouse that Level 5 and Sony always wanted from Dark Cloud. The only difference was that Level 5 did it themselves. It was clear that Level 5 captured the minds and imagination of a new generation, only at a much broader scale than Dark Cloud. They would not have to rely on publishers like Sony, who held their older IP, Dark Cloud, hostage, or Microsoft, who would unfairly cancel their projects prior to release. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, as Yokai Watch Mania had faded away, as Level 5 had to make the difficult call to close their international office, which helped localize their own games for international markets. From then, Level 5 grabbed that Dran's feather and ran to the finish line. They're back on their feet, busy creating their own IPs. In 2024 alone, they have a new Inazuma 11, Professor Layton, and Fantasy Life game coming out. Level 5 is leading the charge of Japanese greatness in gaming. And finally, what happened to Bluebox? After the release of Dark Cloud figures in the summer of 2001, Bluebox would later acquire the right to create toys for Final Fantasy, King of Fighters, and many more. After the death of Bluebox founder in November 15, 2013, the company went on a new direction, leaving the beautifully detailed world of video game figures behind to pivot to toddler toys. Notably, at one point in time, they had total right to create toys for Bluey and Peppa Pig. Even then, the question remains, what became of BBI's archive? What became of the figures that were never released, like Ruby, Dark Genie, and Minotaur Joe? We will never know. There's no denying that there was a large demand in customers wanting to own figures of their favorite video game characters, and this only increased in the 2000s as the advancements in both video game visuals meant that character designs could become more complicated, and this also paralleled the advancements in sculpting technology, as the 2000s saw companies like McFarlane Toys and NECA redefine what it means to create a quality action figure at an affordable price. Flash forward 20 years and PlayStation partnered with ThinkGeek as a response to Nintendo's lucrative amiibo figures. and PlayStation released their own line of collectible figures called Totaku, everyone from Parappa the Rapper to the Good Hunter of Bloodborne. The only level 5 representation we got in Totaku was Evan from Ni no Kuni 2, level 5's most recent release at the time, and they didn't bother to delve back into their catalog of classic level 5 PlayStation characters from Dark Cloud, Dark Cloud 2, or Rogue Galaxy before PlayStation abandoned the toy line, and this all leads to a beautifully bizarre butterfly effect. A thought experiment, if you will. Imagine if these Dark Cloud figures would have been successful in the early 2000s. Would we have gotten figures for Dark Cloud 2 or Rogue Galaxy? Now, there are still companies out there like First 4 Figures who made a name for themselves creating premium figures of lesser known 2000s RPGs like The Legacy of Kain and Eternal Arcadia. Maybe with enough demand we can get other companies open to the idea of creating Dark Cloud figures. There is a demand here. Dark Cloud's figures are an interesting page in Dark Cloud's Forgotten Chronicle, and my personal introduction to the amazing world of lost media. Preserving these figures through the Dark Cloud Compendium feels gratifying, but it just could not have been done without the help of Story Lover, Kai, and the rest of the Dark Cloud community. It all begs the question, where did the rest of these figures go? And when will they be found? Lost media, an unwritten record with many questions. As the tides of life wash away our footprints in the sand, lost media and the history of video games is no different. But our community's hunt to preserve Dark Cloud's lost media is the true, never-ending adventure. My name's Hidden Castle, and if you enjoyed this Lost Media video, feel free to check out our other Dark Cloud videos. Take care and have a great day. Hey there! I hope you enjoyed our documentary on Dark Cloud's lost figurines. It was one that I had a lot of fun putting together, and I wanted to talk a little bit, just a tiny bit, about the behind the scenes, because this video organically grew and mutated, if you will, as the years went on, and that's it, years! I'll tell you what, this first started back in October of 2023, and I wrote a 2-page script, and it was something where it was supposed to be a light video, about maybe 15 minutes, but the more I started to fall in the rabbit hole that was Bluebox, that was BBI, that is Dark Cloud, it just grew and grew. So I had to ask myself, is it best to just put out a video that's 15 minutes, or why not dig out our soul and put everything out there and make it the most complete, comprehensive video on a very forgotten company from a forgotten game series? And that's what breaks my heart the most, is that Dark Cloud, I think, is the most wonderful thing in the world, and these statues really are quite nice. So as time progressed, it went from 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, we could push it to about 20. And then from 20, I said, okay, we could do about 30, make it a half-hour special. Now by then, 2 months have passed without a video, and I always say the beautiful people, the viewers, are the ones that you're trying to do your best for. So I'm like, well, it's been 2 months. I can't give them a video that's 30 minutes in good conscience and make them wait 2 months for it. 3 months rolled around, it was a 45-minute long video. I said, you know what, make it an hour, 1 hour, give it the iceberg treatment. As of now, this is the longest video on the channel of just straight Dark Cloud Compendium goodness, you know, voiceover all throughout, aside from the icebergs. So that, it does feel quite nice for me professionally, because this is what I do, and I love doing it. It's how we find our worth in the world, right? And I think lost media is a very important topic, one that should not be disregarded or infantilized. It's something that's part of our culture. And when our culture is lost, that terrifying feeling of the familiar being missing, it really makes you think of our imprints in the world. There were real people that made these statues. There were real people that sat down and sculpted them and created them, and we have no idea who they are, where they are, you know, what happened to the rest of these lovely statues between Ruby and the Dark Genie and Minotaur Joe. But I wanted to make sure that this video was the most complete video on Dark Cloud statues. And it's funny because it took us through a rabbit hole talking about almost all aspects of Dark Cloud. Tokyo Game Show, Jump Fest, these obscure festivals that were not even here in the States. They're over down yonder in the land of the rising sun, in Nippon, in Japan, if you will. And just researching, like, I was able to live in the early 2000s for about 8 months, from 2023 October to October of 2024. It's bizarre, it really is. And it's a lovely feeling, and it's one that I never take for granted. And as we go along, I think that maybe this video will have to be updated once upon a time, maybe in the future. If these statues do get found, the rest of them, I'll gladly make an extension, maybe a director's cut, who knows. But I want to thank all my amazing patrons for being very patient with me and being with me every step of the process. I want to thank the lovely viewers. It's you all. Honestly, I make these videos, whether they're 1 minute long or 1 hour long, and I only expect them to get 2 views, one from me and one from my mom, from Mama Castle. So the fact that it gets anything more than 2 is humbling. And it's never about the eyeballs, it's about the feeling. It's about that feeling of discovery, of the never-ending treasure hunt that is Dark Cloud and Lost Media as a whole. So with that being said, I want to thank you all from the bottom of my hidden castle hearts. I hope that one day the rest of these statues could be found, but until then, we have what we have, and we're thankful for it. It was a long search, over 20 years, over 2 decades. That's longer than some of you have been alive, really. But it's a search that was well worth taking. That journey was truly special, and I thank you all for being a part of it. Now, I'll see you in the next video, maybe a new Dark Cloud iceberg. And here we are in our rainy valley to finish our final few shots for the Dark Cloud action figure documentary. One of my favorite parts about the Dark Cloud Compendium is coming together with Mother Nature to film some of these wonderful, special, magical shots. I think it really does elevate the compendium, and it gives it a really nice, unique look. One of the core themes of Dark Cloud is nature, and I love Mother Nature as well. It's very important to note that our friend is bubble wrapped for his protection to make sure that he doesn't get any injuries on our journey throughout this valley. It may be a little shaky, but we're doing it with one hand. We have our copies of Dark Cloud, along with these Ultra Pro trading card holders, enough to hold a DVD. And here goes our special friend. There we go. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make these gradually fade away. So through doing this, we're gonna be just filming with the tripod and then removing one and then enabling a fade effect on that, so it looks like it fades. Removing the other and then doing the same, and then this is real TV, folks. Wouldn't it be funny if one of them falls in the water? That would be a nice little artifact for some scuba diver later on, but that's okay. So as you can see, the tripod is a little too high for where we want it. I don't think the shot with the river is going to work. If we had a smaller tripod, maybe, but there is this very cool looking mountain crag down this way that maybe we could do something with, and it'd be high enough to get the shot that we want to do. So let's not waste any time. Now these waterfalls look really cool. I want to try to get a shot of Dark Cloud 1 and 2 fading away into the distance within these waterfalls. It's too good to pass up, really. Let's give it a shot and see how it is. Nothing got lost away in the waves. Lost media saved once again. Thanks to the Dark Cloud community. And as you can see on the bottom left, over 317 transitions, 317 sequence shifts, and over 1 hour of footage. We're not even done yet. We still have the fan creations to add in there. But here it is, a 1 hour work print of the documentary rendering. Now, it's going to be going through 2 separate passes. The first pass is nice and quick. The second pass is the one that takes more time. It'll take about maybe an hour and 20 minutes, maybe 45 minutes to render. But because there's so many different sequence shifts and transitions throughout the video, and I wish I could scroll through right now and show it all, but it's rendering. I really do enjoy using Microsoft Movie Maker. Why? The reason being it's the most primitive program, and I think being able to showcase your skill through using the most primitive program really shows the excellence of your skill set, and that's what I enjoy the most of it, is the fact that it doesn't matter if you give somebody ketchup and chopsticks, they'll still be able to make a nice painting if they're talented at it. And I think after 5 years of doing this work and doing video production, we've gotten quite good at it, and we've learned how to work Movie Maker like a wizard. Also, it gives videos this very unique look, this very almost a grainy 2010s aesthetic, and I absolutely adore that. I always make the videos and ask myself, like, what would I want to watch growing up? Almost like letters to the past, very similar to Max at the end of Dark Chronicle. I'd like to send these videos to myself when I was younger, when none of this was known. We had these questions, but none of the answers or solutions. The best thing is, we found them together. This is all for you because you're all amazing, and we're all amazing together, the best team. I hope you enjoy this little segment talking about the making of this documentary. Almost a year out of my life through different various illnesses, but with the lungs being an issue always. As soon as we recovered, I said, okay, we need to make something special. The last video rather that we worked on while we were still relatively healthy was the Flash video. And if you ever watch the Flash video, notice like something about it is off, or it sounds off, or it looks off. It's because I wasn't feeling very well, but I didn't want to take that month off. I took that month off. That meant that that you all would have one less video to watch, and I wouldn't want to do that, especially when a lot of these videos are they're finite. There's not an infinite number of them. So when I started to feel like my lungs weren't able to perform at the level that I was comfortable with, because I was not able to breathe easy, and I was just in a lot of pain with breathing and with doing voiceover I'm in the booth for about maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes per video, whether it's a 5-minute long video or a 10-minute long video. I want to make it sound just right, so it takes a lot out of it that I had to take a bit of a break. But when I came back, I said, okay, one video I always wanted to work on was the video that you're seeing today, the Lost Figures of Dark Cloud, and all of the pieces came together. We were able to get through the help of Story Lover and other amazing patrons. We're able to get these lost artifacts in our hands, and that's when the time was right. That's when we had to make this video. We just had to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And through everybody coming together with their passion, I wanted to make it 1 hour long because I think we deserve that. Honestly, probably one of the last 1 hour long videos I'll ever do. I don't know how much longer I have these 1 hour long videos left in me. We're probably going to scale back to doing 10 minute, 5 minute, 15 to 20 at the longest, but I really do enjoy these longer videos, though, the 1 hour long productions, because you're able to sit down and just really get into the topic, if the topic allows it, right? But with a lost history of these statues, as you can see, we're only 9% in the second pass. But with these lost statues, I feel like there's so much history between Level 5, Sony, Bluebox, Tokyo Game Show, Jump Fest, and just going back through the Wayback Machine, the lost beta figures, and where the figures ended up, the quality, why were they not stamped, the ongoing mysteries. It's too much, it really is, but I think we probably could have went on for another hour. There is some things that I wanted to talk about that something had to come, like something had to give. We had to say, okay, you know what, this is good, enough's enough, because we're going to be working on it forever. And other videos would fade away because of that. Other videos would not get released because of that. I really want to do Dark Cloud Iceberg 4. I also think I should probably keep that close to the chest, but I want to speak it out there. Iceberg 4 is something that is going to be fun, because I feel like that's one of probably the last iceberg I do, just because again, it takes a lot out of me, and I really want to focus on just making sure that I'm healthy, and while still being able to put these videos out there. It shouldn't be one or the other. At one point it was, but I want to make sure that we're all good. And here we are, 12%. I've rambled on long enough, and I just want to say thank you for checking out the video. Thank you for sticking with me. You're all very, very special, and I hope you enjoyed. Hope was worth the wait. Take care and be well. See you later, alligator. Hello, one and all, and welcome to episode 2 of the Dark Cloud Podcast. My name is Castle, and I'm very excited to start this podcast. This unscripted podcast focuses on the Dark Cloud series of video games, as well as the making of behind our latest Dark Cloud Compendium videos, and going over the community comments which you all left behind, and the community creations. It's been off season for the Dark Cloud podcast, and believe me, I've missed doing this, but in that time I've been very busy. I've started collaborating with Word of Wind, Mike Sword, The Yuppie, and Glitched on a very exciting Dark Cloud announcement that's coming soon, as well as getting more video and beta content ready for the year of 2021 for you all to enjoy. The Dark Cloud fanbase has some of the most passionate and talented fans out there, and although there's no new game coming out for the Dark Cloud series, the fanbase is keeping that torch lit. There is people like me making podcasts about it after all. There's never been a more exciting time to be a Dark Cloud fan, and with that being said, let us begin. What better place is there to start than the making of behind our latest Dark Cloud Compendium videos? This was special because it was a very spooky Halloween special episode. The Dark Cloud Compendium's Halloween special is honestly my top 5 favorite videos that I had the pleasure of working on. Jolly vibes all the way through, and it's great that we were able to bring the entire Dark Cloud community together to celebrate this spooky time of year. Now, I don't think anybody created a Halloween video focused on Dark Cloud before, so because of that, I wanted to set the bar as high as I possibly could and give the video a cinematic feel. The creation of the video itself was very, very, very last minute. I would typically work on a Dark Cloud Compendium video for months. I like to be very meticulous with how I do things because these videos are preservation of precious information at the end of the day. Even if I completed the video, I'd still give it a few months to sit on the back burner and come back to it to see if I could iterate on it further to make it a better experience for the viewer, but also to see what else I could add in there to make it more feature complete. However, with all of that said, this didn't apply for the Halloween episode since it was more of a cinematic story reading and not a video detailing important beta information regarding Dark Cloud's development. So the way in which I create my videos didn't really apply with this one since the material I was covering was a fan work, so I was able to have more fun with it. If anything, this is the fastest video turnaround that I ever had, the fastest video that I created and released for you all to enjoy. The idea for a Dark Cloud cinematic story reading came to me when I was watching some old Halloween specials of my favorite online shows, stuff like The Angry Video Game Nerd, The SpoOoky Experiment, and I thought, how hard would it be to apply this same Halloween special formula to Dark Cloud? So I did what I usually do and I started brainstorming ideas on what would be a right fit for the compendium and Dark Cloud in general. Coincidentally, a few months back, I actually did find a few scary sound effects on Dark Cloud's files, so I knew that people would find that interesting. I just didn't really know where to have those sound files. I was thinking about putting it in cut content too, so I knew people would find that interesting. It felt like such a natural fit, a Halloween special episode, these spooky, scary sound effects that we found on the game files, as well as this Dark Cloud spooky story that was written. All these elements came together to become one complete package. When I create videos for the Dark Cloud Compendium, every now and then there will come a big idea. Ideas like creating a video covering Dark Cloud 2's prequel or Dark Cloud's cut character Seda. These videos are naturally a much more larger undertaking than what I usually do at the compendium, so in order to prove to myself that a bigger video like this is possible, I would first make a short teaser as a proof of concept of what I want the video to feel like and what I want to accomplish creatively. These videos are released as a teaser before the video's final release to drum up interest for the final video. With that being said, what I needed to do now was make a scary teaser, and this is something that I really wanted to make as scary as I possibly can. In terms of my creative process, I believe that if you can't nail the fundamentals, then everything else is going to be flawed. I won't have the ability to release a quality video if the teaser isn't something that's fun and scary. I thought if I'm unable to find a way to make an engaging, scary teaser for an upcoming video, then maybe this idea isn't worth pursuing, and we can maybe do it next year and think about it. It was last minute after all. But you know what, I sat down, I was like, okay, what can we do to really scare people? So I sat down for about 6 hours and finished the Dark Cloud Spooky Scary teaser. So with that, I set out and created the Dark Cloud Spooky Storytime teaser. I love found footage horror films, like The Blair Witch Project. That was one of my favorites growing up. The first thing that I wanted to do was to give it a VHS vibe. I also wanted to portray very quick cuts and cutting between very disturbing Dark Cloud things. So we started off with Tone falling into a white void. This was achieved by going into the debug camera menu, setting it at a very awkward position and moving out, but I love that exclamation point. And then it would cut to Claude taking a shower, which I thought was pretty funny. And then to Gaffer with no eyes. I was actually the first person to discover that, and let me tell you, I made the discovery like 3 in the morning, and I was very scared. I was like, oh my god, why does he have no eyes? I must tell everybody. That was a lot of fun, you know, going back to the creation of the teaser. So I went outside in my backyard at 2 in the morning. It was in the freezing cold. I set together all these leaves, you know, sat down, so cold I could see my own breath. Got my camera out and I just started shooting footage. Again, it was a very late shoot, so for the main footage of Dark Cloud in live action, I wanted everything there, the candles, the leaves, you know, just to represent autumn and Halloween. I wanted it to feel very welcoming, but at the same time though, very foreboding and moody. So I think that actually came across quite well. The main reason why I put so much thought into this one shot, and again, I stood outside for about, you know, an hour in the middle of the night, freezing cold, was that initially I wanted the story, the whole video, just to be this one loop of footage over and over and over again. I didn't think I'd be able to really make it a cinematic video, a video where you'd watch and the footage would change as the dialogue changes, like how normal compendium videos are. When looking at how other people would do creepypasta readings or spooky story readings, they'd essentially just have a picture or maybe like one loop of footage over and over. So I thought, well, that'll do, and that actually works because we don't have a lot of time. But I really wanted to make this video something special for everybody. It's not every day that we get a Dark Cloud Halloween special episode, and to be honest, we might not get another one again. So this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm like, you know what? Let's go for it. Why not? And then my philosophy changed. I'm like, if anything now, I want to push it so far, you'd always see something new that you would never see this video footage, aside from the beginning and the end. So I'm pretty proud of myself. I was able to get that, and it took a lot of hard work, but you know, we did it, and the video itself, the end result is pretty amazing. I think it's awesome. So I set out, I did the reading, and it was pretty funny because this reading involved doing different voices for different characters, you know, the main narrator, as well as doing a voice for Flotsam. I learned that I can do a pretty mean Flotsam impression, so that was very funny to learn. You learn something new about yourself every single day. So it was really fun because I wanted to go outside and shoot all sorts of footage in live action. I really wanted to capture the spirit of Halloween within this video. So I started trying to keep an eye out for areas that would fit very well within this video. Initially, what I did was I went to the forest and I got a ton of B-roll footage within the forest, swamps and bogs, but I found that it wasn't as visually appealing as just Halloween decorations within a store. So I decided to scrap all that footage and just take a camera and walk around to local stores that had Halloween venues set up and just get some footage, and I think that worked really, really well. One shot that I'm particularly proud of was a zoom in, zoom out sequence with a skeleton dog. I thought that was really cool. Initially, the video itself was supposed to be a very quick turnaround video. I didn't want to spend too long working on it. The longer that I spent working on a seasonal video, it would mean that time would be taken away from videos that are essential to the compendium. Videos like beta documentation, Japanese to English translations that have never been seen before. So I didn't want to put too much time into a fun little side project. But then I decided to change my mind and put a lot of time into a fun little side project. It's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? People are going to enjoy this. So if that means I have to work that much harder, I'll do it. I'll do it because it'll make people happy and I'll feel satisfied watching it. I was like, well, let me try to make this story as cinematic as possible by grabbing different kinds of B-roll, different pictures that relate to what the narrative is saying. But if I can't find anything like that, that's when I'll jump back to using these candles. One of my favorite parts of this video was the epilogue, where I spoke about how Halloween is portrayed through different mediums of entertainment, such as music, movies, books, and other video games. This is honestly a last-minute addition to the video, but I thought it was necessary, as we all have little personal traditions that we make for special days like Halloween or Christmas. I even dug through some old family VHS tapes that I digitized and found footage of my Halloween in 2000, which was pretty special. It was nice seeing that again. It was nice to find a way to implement that within the video as well, as a bit of a time capsule. I'd love to do more seasonal content like this if the opportunity ever comes up. I really do think it was a lot of fun to bring the community together and for us to celebrate something. We don't do this often, and when we did it big. It was a lot of fun. It seemed like people really enjoyed it. With that being said, let's jump to Dark Cloud Community Creations. Now, this section of the podcast spotlights other amazing Dark Cloud content creators within our community, as well as discusses any significant events that have been going on. Specifically, Hydrogene has been consistently putting out some amazing Dark Cloud musical remixes, and let me tell you, they're the best Dark Cloud arrangements you've ever heard. Shaztopia is a friend of mine who recently started to put out some amazing Dark Cloud video content, which I think you'll all enjoy and is well worth checking out. He recently did a speculation video on the Demon Shaft, which was very interesting. In this video, he speculated upon the history of the Demon Shaft structure, as well as the meaning behind it, if there's any at all, and was even able to use a debug camera in really interesting ways to get some amazing footage. I love seeing more Dark Cloud creative video content. It's also nice to see other people make creative Dark Cloud content. I'm personally really excited to see what kind of Dark Cloud videos Shaz decides to do in the future. Speaking of Let's Plays, one super creative Let's Play that you should definitely check out, which is still ongoing, is Cuboid Pixel's Dark Cloud Randomized Challenge mod. Now try saying that 3 times real fast. This is such an interesting watch, and you should all check it out because this mod really helps breathe new life into this game that we all know and love. It's been 20 years, and let me tell you, seeing the same repetitive dungeons over and over again is one thing, but seeing monsters from the moon in Dran's cave, it really is interesting. And one thing that I enjoy about Cuboid Pixel's Let's Play, it helps expose this challenge mod to a whole different audience of people. Personally speaking, I'm not much of a computer person myself. I'd love to play this challenge mod, but I don't want to sit down and mess with any programs or anything. I'm a hardware guy. I love playing my PS2 and PS4. That's what I play Dark Cloud on. So when it comes to computers, I'm not the most techno-savvy kind of guy. I would love to actually play this mod, but I'm unable to. But this Let's Play, it's something else. It gives me the same feeling of actually playing it. Cuboid Pixel is doing a wonderful job. In addition, shoutouts to YouTube commenters Liam, Story Lover, and Jude for the continued comments and support. You guys are all amazing. I really do appreciate the comments and support that all of you leave behind for the compendium. That's why I make an effort to respond and read through each individual comment. But this is my favorite part of the podcast. This is where I get to read through the comments left behind on our latest Dark Cloud Compendium videos. Today's video is Dark Cloud's spooky storytime creepypasta. It's one thing to respond to a comment through text, it's another to respond to it with actual words. With that being said, let's get started. Kalia Silver puts in the first comment saying, "Scree." I imagine that's a very scary Halloween noise. It scared the daylights out of me, Kalia. Judy says, "Oh man, don't you hate it when you're totally real, 100% legit, not in any way haunted copy of Dark Cloud 2 that you got for an absurdly cheap price on Amazon ends up not working? I hate when that happens." Oh, I agree 101%, Judy. It's always a shame when your haunted copies of video games don't work. You know, I'm still waiting on my haunted copy of Dark Cloud 3 to come in the mail. Any day now. Kalia Silver says, "Speaking of spooky music, Nox Arcana is a great listen too." Hey, you know what? Nox Arcana, that's another one for the backlog. Thank you very much, Kalia. Brandon Slaughter says, "Love the videos as always." Oh, thanks, Brandon. But I have a question about Dark Cloud 2, and I'm sure you'll have an answer. In the opening cutscene, Max is driving a car. Is that a just for fun animation intro, or was there something more to it? Perhaps something in the beta that was scrapped. Perhaps there's something more in the files. This is something I've always wondered when I played the game, and I'm trying to figure out how to get that car. When I was young, always trying to figure out how to get that car when I was young, so it makes sense on why I try to do that. And Story Lover responded to his comment by saying it's so integrated that it's hard to tell whether it was a scrapped idea, cutscene, or if it was just for the intro. I wish we could have gone into the car. That would have been so cool. Perhaps it would have been a way to fight against Flotsam that they scrapped because it didn't make sense story-wise, and maybe found it too hard to animate. Thank you very much, Brendan, for the kind words, and thanks, Story Lover, for the well-thought-out response. I hope both of you enjoyed the video. In terms of the car for Dark Cloud 2's opening, while I don't have a definitive answer, when I did have the chance to speak to Level 5 developers who worked on both games, they recalled that the creative process for both Dark Cloud games was pretty chaotic, in the sense that anyone was able to do anything if they had the extra time for it, but concepts and ideas would always get replaced by better ones if they arose. It was always in a state of iteration, so in that sense, it wasn't a negative place to work at all. If anything, it was really fun. But at the same time though, there was nothing really set in stone, if that makes sense. Things were always being iterated upon. If there was a better way to get something done, they'd do it. I know a lot of the developers who worked on Dark Cloud 1 and 2 are big fans of cars and automobiles and automotives. I know this because I'm a big car guy myself. Now, judging by our conversations as well as the information that I have, I think what happened with the car scene was that a developer created it on their own time with the intent of it being used in the actual game, but throughout development as the game was progressing, a better idea arose, and that took the place of the car chase scene. Now, instead of scrapping that car chase scene altogether, I guess they decided to repurpose it into the intro, which isn't a weird idea at all because Dark Cloud 1 had a ton of cut content that was later reused and repurposed for Dark Cloud 2. I hope that all made sense. Thank you very much, Brandon, for the comment. Story Lover says, "Cool video as always. The spooky story needed a little bit more work and perhaps some more visual editing that may have helped visualize what you meant in some areas. For example, when the story mentions about the mayor's beating being more graphic than that in the actual game, perhaps you could have shown a brief bit of red or some sort of coloration coming out of the corner of his mouth, and maybe the color of his face being blue when he was choked. Of course, I don't know how possible it was. I understand editing a moving video is more hard than it is with a still photograph. Oh, you're very right on that. Man, these spooky sounds are really creepy. Maybe you can make a video on where you found them and imagine what they could have been for. I imagine maybe for Demon Shaft, or perhaps a backdoor sound of the Divine Beast cave. And although you primarily want to focus on Dark Cloud, I would be super interested in a video that talks about the ideas that Dark Chronicle used that were removed from the first game, and maybe what connections the two share aside from having two moons. Hey story lover, it's nice to hear from you again, and I hope you enjoyed this spooky video. Initially, the plan for this video is to have one on-screen visual the entire time, that being the Dark Cloud with the pumpkin candles. I noticed that other video spooky stories and creepypastas only use one single image or one rolling bit of video, so the initial plan was to have Dark Cloud with the candles, but the video started to become much more ambitious as time went on, and I didn't feel comfortable only having one thing on screen, so I decided to try to make the video as cinematic as possible. I think we went above and beyond, trying to add as much visuals and video clips to make it more engaging for everybody. The story itself wasn't necessarily the greatest, as I think it had a lot of cliches and tropes that creepypastas have. Like, I'm surprised the PS2 didn't start bleeding hyper-realistic blood, but I tried my best to make lemons out of lemonade with the story in terms of the video, and I'd honestly love to see the author take another stab at it to see if they've improved. Thanks again for the comment, story lover. Cayenne says, I'm glad the audio quality is better. I found I had to turn the volume right up to hear your voice in previous videos, I think. But I love that you're getting into the Halloween spirit. Thank you very much for the comment, Cayenne. I appreciate it. It's funny because I had to boost the audio up by 30 decibels in the Halloween video, as well as this podcast we're listening to now. I'm naturally a very quiet person, and I have sensitive hearing, so I like my videos on the quieter side. At the same time though, I noticed a couple of people saying that the videos are a little too quiet. Now we can't have that, so I decided to go for it and make it louder, and see where that goes, but it seems like people are enjoying it, so hopefully it'll be like this from here on out. Thanks again for the comment, Kai. I hope you had a happy Halloween. Mihail and Nate1 said, I've thought about the video coming out non-stop since it was announced. From the bottom of my heart, Mihail and Nate, thank you so much for the continued support and enthusiasm. That really means a lot, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Preston Thomas says the music would always scare me out in Dark Cloud. The genie was always so creepy and powerful. Some of the enemies would really scare me as well. Well, it's nice to hear from you, Preston. I swear, some of those monster designs really scared me as a kid. I think the ghost in Dran's cave, the one that makes the alarm noise when it hits you, that one got me. I think when I heard that, I dropped the controller and ran out of the room. Time goes by, but you know what? I'm still a fraidy cat. When I hear that ghost, I still bolt out of the room. Liam Clutch says, I'm the 99th viewer, the 16th comment, and the 23rd like. Now 3 videos I'd love to see is 1. The next episode of the podcast, 2. A Dark Cloud playthrough, and 3. More Dark Cloud beta content, as well as Dark Cloud 2 content. Thank you very much for the support, Liam. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this spooky Halloween video. I'd love to do more episodes on Dark Cloud beta content. Believe me, there's a lot of content to go through, and hopefully we'll be touching on that in the future. I'll say this much though. We put out 2 major Dark Cloud beta videos. Number 1 was Dark Cloud beta uncut content, which was a 15-minute video, and number 1.5 was Dark Cloud's deleted playable character, Seda, which was a 14-minute video as well. Now I'm going to tell you all a secret. The video that was titled Dark Cloud's Beta Unused Character, Seda Found, also known as Dark Cloud Beta Uncut Content 1.5, that was actually a snippet of Dark Cloud Beta Uncut Content 2. Now if this video, which was 14 minutes, is a snippet of what's to come, let's just say there's a lot to go through. I'm the worst at keeping surprises, I really am. That's all that I'm gonna say. There's a lot coming in terms of beta uncut content. Liam also says, I had a question, is there any evidence found on what happens to Tone after Dark Cloud 1, or even the Atlamelia Stone? That's a very good question, Liam. As of now, there's no evidence on what happened to Tone after the events of Dark Cloud 1, or the Atlamelia, but honestly, if there's one thing that I learned from doing this, although I've been making Dark Cloud videos for about 1.5 years now, the thing about Dark Cloud is there's a lot of information that's never been seen hidden in Japanese interviews, magazine interviews, website interviews, interviews that have never been properly translated. You know what, we may be in for a surprise. Who knows what's going to happen? That's the one thing that's for sure about Dark Cloud. Nothing's for sure. So we might find something in the future relating to that. Keyboard Pixel says, I have spooky creepypastas in my recommended thanks this video. I guess you have talent for sharing spooky stories. Pixel, you're too much. Now you're going to be spooked forevermore. Oh my goodness. Darren Maloney says, this is the exact kind of spookiness I was hoping for. Well, you know what, Darren? Thank you for the kind words, and I hope you enjoyed that spooky video. There's nothing quite like it on YouTube, and I'm rather proud of that. Derek Marler says, lol, this story has pretty much every haunted game cliche ever. My favorite being the gore for no reason. That's really funny you mentioned that, Derek. Judy chimes in by saying, trust me, the original version of the story was much more graphic. Derek, it's nice to hear from you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. This video had all the tropes of a so bad it's good creepypasta. It actually had even more gore in it, but I wasn't comfortable reading that. Andrew Koda says, I'm glad to have a downloaded copy of Dark Chronicle on the PS4. The only flaw encountered is a graphical glitch in the police station, but it's a great purchase. Hey Andrew, thanks for the comment. I find how Sony handled PS2 on PS4 to be really interesting. I think their emulator did a great job of encapsulating the vibe and feel of the PS2. Now if you don't know, the PlayStation 2 was a bit of a nightmare to program for. It all came down to the Emotion Engine. Now while it was a very difficult chip to program for, it also rewarded the programmers in spades with amazing graphics and content. Now, it's one of those situations where it's such a complicated machine that I think Sony did a great job replicating it on PS4. Every now and then there might be some oddities. I know Dark Cloud in and out that every now and then I might notice some texture warping or some things that aren't supposed to be there. I'm just thankful to play it on a lovely console like the PlayStation 4. Armin Gavorkian says, great video, thanks for keeping the Dark Cloud hype alive after all these years. Now I'm forced to play Dark Cloud 2 on PS4 again. It's not like I gotta twist your arm to do that. Playing Dark Cloud 2 is a great way to spend your time, Armin, and it's good their community is keeping interest high in the Dark Cloud series because you never know, it may lead to a new game being announced. We gotta stay hopeful and positive, right? Razor Arkwolf says, finally, I got around to watching it and it was definitely worth the wait, man. I'm glad that the video delivered on your expectation, Razor. I hope you enjoyed it. This concludes our Dark Cloud community comments as well as the second edition of the Dark Cloud podcast. So if you enjoyed this unscripted podcast, feel free to leave a like, comment, and consider subscribing. I hope you enjoyed the autumn season, as well as Halloween. December 14th is going to be a special day, as that marks the 20th anniversary of Dark Cloud's initial release. So the coming months will definitely be exciting and something to look out for. Take care, friends, and as the artist formerly known as Prince would say, may you live to see the dawn. Take care, friends, and stay safe. Have a great day. Enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest Dark Cloud content. The Dark Cloud Digital Compendium is a YouTube channel that's home to an exclusive video library with videos that focus on Dark Cloud's beta and cut content. Our Dark Cloud Japanese to English translation videos, like our Dark Cloud 2 canon prequel translation, as well as videos on Dark Cloud debug menus and so much more. The purpose of the Dark Cloud Compendium is to provide fans with a channel that focuses on our favorite Diorama RPG series.
Squadala, we're off!
Many thanks go out to these amazing Compendium patrons. Without them, our Compendium wouldn't be possible. Anna,
Sundial Shark,
Jamie Jackson,
Story Lover,
JP Jamin,
Weeb Warrior,
Ryan Seven,
GD Break,
Trash Cats,
Ronin 395,
Raposa,
Liam the Dark Cloud Beta 7. And many thanks to Compendium allies throughout the years in our very own Dark Cloud community. Thank you. Without you, it just wouldn't be the same, would it? And many thanks to our Moon Sea Mega Supporter GD Break, who has a message for the Dark Cloud community. GD Break wants to wish everyone a happy Halloween and hope they have a fun time celebrating and eating a lot of candy. Hey, be sure to save us some of that candy now. Come on. Happy Halloween, everybody. Thank you to my patrons. Thank you to my viewers. And thank you to the Dark Cloud community. My name's Hidden Castle, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care and be well.